Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for arc number 3 of Andor. As you can see, no big sushi today. It is not a 420 review. It is just a classic, regular, sober review. I did bust out this shirt for a bit of levity. Don't question it. It's not meant to make sense, but I bust this one out for times when it's necessary, and it's necessary this time. So the attack on Gorman, the massacre on Gorman is far more appropriate, was very fascinating. We were building up to it, of course, and it was like, okay, let's see where this goes. We'd heard of the attack with Grand Moff Tarkin where it was like, I'm just gonna squish these people, no big deal. Then they put a monument up, and then they build a giant armory to cast a shadow over said monument. Like just the little things, you know, if you will. And of course, we knew what the plan was from the very first arc. It was like, hey, this is Gorman. We kind of need the Calcite. We need it. We need them to seem like pieces of crap, and we need to be able to kind of push them out so that we can take the planet. Especially considering us taking all, as much Calcite as we need is probably going to completely destroy the planet, like pretty much. Not that that's something that will be, lost on the Empire going forward, of course, with their building of the Death Star. It's odd to think about this was, their energy project, of course, was to get more power for, the Death Star, which is a planet destroying machine. And you see that like they've destroyed planets, just piece by piece, just little things. Obviously it's the natural oppression of the Empire and taking over and things like that. And then it's like, they're going to crack the planet. Like that's what they're going to do, is like, it's going to be unsustainable because they're going to be mining it so hardcore that it will just wipe out the planet itself, because that's what they need. They need that mineral. So we knew what the plan was going into it, and we'd seen the build up. We'd seen the resistance start to build up. We'd seen, the clashing of heads, starting to come along. And of course, Syril was doing his thing where it's like, okay, we're looking for the Gorman front. They've started to reach out, and it turns out, and it was kind of the question, we knew what he was doing, but of course he doesn't know everything. So even he was getting hit with, the propaganda before everyone else was. Like he was the one who was like 100%, well, like, I'm with my girlfriend, like, these are the bad guys. My girlfriend's a good guy. We work for the Empire, greatest day of his life and all that good stuff in the last arc. And it all comes down to this moment where we have the official attack on Gorman. Everything's proceeding as it's meant to. And it's like, we gave it a shot, like we spent a whole year, we put scientists on it and everything. We tried to make alternatives, synthetic versions. It just, it's not really cutting it. So all science said and done, bad luck Gorman. I think that's what it comes out to. And it's like, oh, that's the Empire. That's, of course, that's what they've always done. That's what we've known them to do. Obviously, going into the future beyond Andor, we know what the Empire is capable of. And it was just interesting, like I say there were like maybe 4 different levels of Imperial people within like this little arc that we had, where we have at the very top, like obviously everyone that's like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're attacking, this is why we're taking this planet, and that's Dedra's boss and everything. And his calm nature about it, like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Like every time she was a little upset, he'd be like, you seem animated. Like that was his way of telling her like to calm down and stuff. And so you got them at the top, obviously Palpatine and everybody. Right under that, I would say, was the guy that they sent there who had like the scar, where he just was like, all right, this is what's going to happen. He respects the chain of command, as he put it, where it was like, hey, I'm trigger awareness or something like that. He was like, but you're the finger. And I was like, okay, that's him. Then of course you have Dedra going for it, not minding promotions, to use her own words against her. She didn't seem to mind the promotions, but she was going through with it right up until it was too late, right up until she had to see it done. Then it was like, ooh, it was easy when it was like over there, and I was like kind of putting pieces together like a puzzle from, half a galaxy away. But now I'm here, the square is right outside my window, and I'm watching them box them in and then just start blasting people. And not only that, I have to give the order not to shoot innocent people, but to shoot our own innocent people to forcefully trigger a massacre. We're gonna shoot our own guy, because now they, the Gormans come in and they're chanting and stuff, and then it turns into them singing, I would assume, we can consider their national anthem. And it's like, oh man, it's kind of hard to shoot peaceful singers. What if one of our people was shot? And of course, the guy who was leading all of these new recruits was like, he would assume, of course, why would he think that his own people shot him? He goes out there, he's like, well, they're green, they're inexperienced. That's of course the whole point, is they're going to be a little, trigger happy. One of them gets killed, and then he goes on the rampage. And then they start blasting people. Like one of them shot a lady like point blank right in his face, and it was just like boom, right in the chest. Another lady's running away, shot her straight in the back, and then they just start picking people off, and then absolute chaos erupts, absolute madness. And we'll go back to that in a little bit. But it was definitely the thing to kind of kick this review off. It was absolutely insane and really crazy. But I do want to start with episode 1. Skipped a year, all that good stuff. We were actually on Yavin. We see the whole rebellion and all that stuff. That's actually very cool. Woman comes in. We got Bix and Andor about to make out and do all their fancy stuff. They're off in like a cool little hut out in the forest and stuff like that, away from everybody. We get the little lead in of like, okay, Luthen wants to know if you're ready. Clearly, he's not a part of the rebellion. Like, it's a very separated thing, kind of like Saw being very guerrilla war tactics. The rebellion doesn't deal with him too much. He doesn't deal with Luthen too much. Luthen doesn't deal with the rebellion too much. So you got 3 sides of the same triangle, and everybody's like, we'll talk when we need to talk. So that's how everybody is, and it gives a little bit more classification as to why you might not see, Luthen and his crew with the rebels. Like, they're very separated. Granted, who knows? Anyone could still die in the finale, so we don't know. They could easily live, but I think Luthen is probably the #1 person where it's like he has to die. He has to. I don't need him to die, but it's almost like of all the people that they killed Cinta off, that was unnecessary. And it's like Luthen almost feels like he has to, just for story purposes. It almost makes sense that he dies as like possibly the final death, if the only death, going into the finale. So we'll see what happens with that. But I thought that was interesting, like getting that bit of clarification on like, okay, leading into, of course, Rogue One and everything, like why wouldn't we see these characters and stuff? And then when you see in this batch of episodes just how separated they all truly are from each other, it's like, okay, I could understand why he wouldn't be there in Rogue One. I'm still gonna say it's probably because he died. I would hope if anyone dies, it would just be him. Like I said, like Clea's like right there. I'm kind of falling in love with her, so she needs to stick around. Even if we don't ever see her again, she can stay. That's my hope. But we'll see what happens. But I like that we're, officially on Yavin, and we get to see everybody, kind of forming together and everything. Also, have to point out that they did a reference, and this was from season 1, and also technically it was a reference from Andor in the beginning. In the episode where Andor helps everybody escape and he ends up teaming up with that one dude, that's who that was that had the gun. When Vel was like, who does this belong to? And he was like, oh, I think that's mine. That's the guy from season 1. That guy is also in the movie Andor. That's why they got him back from season 1. And that's how that all kind of goes together. So if you didn't notice that, that's the guy from the prison in season 1. And that guy is actually in Andor. I think he might be in the final battle, but he also says like an actual line that they repeated, from Andor. And then they have him like look at Andor in the movie. Actually, him and Andor look at each other. And then they kind of took that scene and brought it back in the show. So that's the guy from the prison. We'll see what happens as far as Andy Serkis potentially coming back. I heard some stuff about that. Obviously, we got 3 episodes left. Also, have to say it because it's my last chance to say, will they, won't they? Where is his sister? What are they going to do? 3 episodes left. I think it'll come up, but I'm very curious how relevant it's really going to be, because that would be crazy to forget. It's literally the first episode, so I know they didn't, but they are saving it for the final moment. And I just can't really comprehend on a personal level, how do you tell that story and wrap it in when we're in the finale? The last 3 episodes, and if I'm not mistaken, the final episode is literally like the mission that begins the movie Andor. I think they said that at Celebration. Not even this year, like the one before last. I think they mentioned that, like, yeah, the final episode literally goes directly into that mission of him meeting, the dude that he met at the beginning of Rogue One. And I'm curious. I'm like, okay, that could easily just be, the last like 3 minutes or whatever. That's no big deal. But I'm so curious. I'm like, that sister thing is just there. It's just out there somewhere. Craziest thing in the world. It wouldn't happen at all. It wouldn't even make sense. But I'm like, Dedra's an orphan. It's not going to be her. They're not going to pull that twist. That would be absolutely insane. But where is his sister? What is the story? What are they going to do with that? I'm way too curious, because I'm like, it's got to happen. It's going to happen. They don't have that many episodes. It's not like an anime where it's like, oh, that was 400 episodes ago. I forgot about that. Like, no, it was like it was like, I guess at this point it would be like 10, 12 episodes ago. It was the first one. It's in there somewhere. It's got to be in the finale somewhere. So I just wanted that one last time where I can say, will they, won't they? They have to. Otherwise, that's insane. but crazier things have happened. There are tons of shows you can watch that went on for a long time where it was like, whatever happened to that whole character you guys made up? We just forgot. And then like a character just disappears forever. Like it happens all the time in television. Characters disappear, they go upstairs. That's a classic sitcom thing, but characters will go upstairs, a plot line will happen, and they're just like, we just left it. We just never finished it, never went back to it. Just, it happens all the time. That would be insane for a show this small to do that, especially for the literal first story plot line that we got in the entire series as him looking for his sister. That would be insane, but we'll see what happens. But I liked episode 1. I like getting to see everything play out. I like Woman, obviously, you know, with the year gap after the stuff with Saw, he's clearly a bit more serious about things. He wants to, you know, kind of work with Luthen and do some of the more guerrilla tactics and be more involved in things. So I thought that was cool. He just can't stay away from finding somebody else to just fall in love with. At least this time, nobody got killed because of it. Not his fault. Not his fault because of it. Just, he was involved in some stuff where a lot of people died, but nothing was his fault. He did get injured, but he's going to be fine. We'll see what happens in the finale. Another thing where I'm like, okay, he's very close to our main character, and he's not in the movie. That I'm worried about. I was worried about Biggs, and then she takes off by the end, which was crazy. Couldn't believe that happened. And it's like, oh, that's so sad. I'll find you after it's all said and done. That's interesting. So we'll see what happens. Maybe this is, once again, this is hope or cope, whatever you want to call it. But maybe Woman takes off somewhere in the finale, and it's like, I'll find Biggs. You keep going. I'll figure out where she's at. I'll bring her to us so we can, you know, maybe their plan is like, well, you know, the three of us can do it together. I'll find her. Don't worry about it. And then that's how he leaves. And then all the sad stuff happens. I don't know. Just trying to find some poorly written way to keep everybody alive that I can. But we'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening. But, you know, a year span, maybe he can be happy. They can still be together. People bang. They could have a kid and they don't even fight as much. Who's to say? Just trying to throw out some cope. But I like everything they did, you know, with that and showing the separation between the groups and everything. And then back to Gorman. Absolute madness. The whole second episode, I was just on edge, like, ugh, somebody's dying. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what the moment is. You know, all the images, and of course I saw it early enough to where I only saw like 2 thumbnails where it was just, you know, of course everyone was showing Syril. And I just assumed like, okay, maybe he actually did turn on someone. What if he killed Dedra? Like, what if that was the crazy moment? Because I could totally see it happening. It's been like, you know, is he going to turn good? Is he going to stay evil? He's going to have to make a decision. And if we go through the moment, and technically he does get to make the main decision. He just unfortunately doesn't really get to follow through with it. But he of course realizes finally towards the end where it's like, you know, these are rumors, they're outside agitators, and, you know, the Merovingian is like, you know, what kind of being are you? And it's like, you can't believe that would be worth even saying that to my face. And he thinks he's a bad guy the whole time because it's like, well, he couldn't possibly be a pawn. He works for the Empire. So it was just a fascinating bit of turmoil where it's like, I couldn't possibly believe that you don't know what's going on in everything that you did. You were clearly a spy. And then to have that spy not know the type of spy that he really is, it's like, you're not going to believe that. That's not what's going to come to mind. You're going to assume you've been tricked this whole time. But of course he wasn't. Well, I mean, they both were, I guess, but, you know, he wouldn't think that. And so I love the way it was handled. And of course, you know, Syril going through and having probably like the best moment, one of the best moments for sure in the show, with him actually getting angry with Dedra. And first he's grabbing her, she's like, you know, you're hurting me. And then he went like the crazy quiet guy mode where he was just like, if you tell me those are rumors, I will throw you out this window. And he's choking her and stuff. And then of course she tells him the truth, and he's just like, good luck with that. And he takes off. And he's stunned. He's in the plaza. He doesn't know what to do. He's just looking around, all these people dying. I thought he might die right there, honestly, because the Empire doesn't really know it's him. They might, you know, there might be something to that where I could kind of excuse it, where it's like, yeah, they would probably know, like, at least a little bit, but at the same time, they wouldn't. But he's looking around, everybody's getting hit, all this other stuff. We'd already had like the half cross of him and Andor on the stairs, and I was like, oh, that's a good sequence. And of course, Andor's trying to do his thing where he's trying to take out Dedra. He's going to try to hit her with the sniper rifle. Then he finds out the stormtroopers are above his room, so it's like, this is a little tough, to say the least. And then everything goes down. And he's like, I don't know what to do. He was going somewhere. I'm curious where he would have been going, but it doesn't matter anymore. But Syril is moving, and he sees Andor after all this time. and he just charges in and tackles them, and they have a crazy fight. There's people dying left and right outside. It's outside agitators and rumors and this and that, and I've been lied to and all these things. And then it just comes down to, holy crap, that's the guy. After everything that's happened, 3 years at this point, that's the guy. And they fight, and he has a moment where he has the blaster on him and everything, and Andor just looks and says, "Who are you?" And it's just shattering, like nothing. He has nothing. Everything he'd gone through, all the madness, all the rage, all of that is just like, you don't even, there's nothing. And then boom, he's dead, just like that. Like it's so good and so fascinating just to try to imagine exactly what would be going through someone's head in a moment like that, where that is like your sole focus of revenge all this time. And especially, like, it's been years, so a part of it is kind of like he's somewhat past it, like just a little bit. Like, I mean, honestly, I think the same thing could have been said on both sides, because until they bring it up, it was like, oh, okay, like they're still both very focused. As far as like on Andor's side of thing, woman is like, here she is, this is the one who did it, this is the one who killed my dad. Like, I forgot about that from season 1, like her actually being the one to specifically kill his father. But it's stuff like that where it's like, they might not talk about it, it's been a year and this, that, and the other, but I bet Dedra wouldn't remember them. It would be like the exact same thing. Like, that is kind of where the totem pole is. Like, the people that cause you the most pain, they're just walking away. It's like, well, I was kind of just doing my own thing. I wasn't even thinking about you, So I love that idea, because I think Dedra would have had the same reaction. Like, who are you? Like, I don't recognize you. Like, she may have had the concept at least a little bit as far as Andor is concerned, but for a woman, I don't think she would have recognized him at all. I think it would have been the exact same thing. Like, it was a Tuesday, if you get that reference, congrats. But it's such a fascinating way to do it. And it's just like, wow, he hit him with the "who are you?" And it's just like that pause. Like, it's so many questions, so many, like, unlimited options of what could have happened next. But he just dies, because it's like the guy, the leader comes in and he just shoots him. They gave him like a straight up pistol, by the way. I was like, that's actually super cool. But they gave him like a straight up pistol based blaster. And it was just like, man, that is such a crazy. And I knew it was gonna happen. Like, when they were in that scene, I was like, oh, he's gonna die. Like, I just knew it. I was just like, oh, bye, Syril. Like, I knew for a fact, like, he's not gonna kill Andor, but I wasn't expecting it to end the way that it did, because I'm like, oh, they're fighting and stuff. I'm like, oh, he's not gonna make it. But the way that it ended was still very shocking, where it was like he was going to win, and who knows, they probably would have talked about it, and who knows how things would have played out as far as him not really wanting to do the things that he'd ended up doing, the mistakes there, the potential relationship that was there, because they have the one sequence where he was trying to talk to the leader's daughter, and she slapped him in the face. That is a very classic, I'm angry, but I used to have feelings for you type of moment, where it's like, we can put it on these outside agitators, and she just slapped him. And it's like, that is a classic sign of a lover's quarrel, which is another infinite possibility type of storyline, where it's like, Syril, fascinating. He does a lot of things that we wouldn't expect, I guess, but it all comes down to the end, and he's dead now, along with quite a few other people, like the leader's daughter. They bring out the K2 droids, and they just did a death by throw, which you don't see very often. You don't see, I mean, they showed the one person afterwards, like in the streets and stuff. That dude was flung into a wall and it cracked. It's like, okay, but typically people just being thrown far, you don't see it very often. And she fell and just broke her back, broke her neck, whatever, and she was done, and that was it. And she was dead. The other guy had already been shot in the stomach, so he couldn't help her. Then he ends up dying later. I was like, he was injured, and I was like, okay, they get out later, but it's like, no, he just succumbs to his wounds, and he still ends up dying, even though he was shot in the stomach. He got to live longer, really, just to see that happen and see more people die. And then he passes out by the end, and he dies, and it's just like, this sucks. This is sad. And of course, that's the point. That is the point of this whole massacre, which of course is due to, just these angry Gormans, like the way they were doing the propaganda, Syril seeing it as he was walking past the person, doing like the news coverage. A great moment. Like, I think that was like the official trigger, like, holy crap. This is like when he was talking to his mom, like, oh, that's propaganda and stuff. He was hit with the propaganda before anybody was. He had no idea he was, of course, because he trusts, his girlfriend, but he was hit with the propaganda long before anybody else was. And it was very interesting and sad, just so sad, because of the character he was. He was never, it was very clear He was just the guy who thinks, I follow orders, I do good. And he was following orders. He had, like I said, the greatest day of his life, greatest moment of his life, and all that stuff. And then it's like, oh, I was following orders from the worst people. Like, this sucks. Like, these are actually innocent people. And just the way they were doing it, like the confrontation between him and Dedra was really good, where she was freaked out, but then she kind of brought herself back at the end. Like, you didn't seem to mind the promotions. I was like, she had to kind of recover a little bit of that power for herself. And then it all comes crumbling down. Of course she's sad, and like her like tugging on her uniform and stuff to try to regain composure. And of course the scene with his mom just like crying at the TV towards the end. Very sad, but amazing episodes. And then the way that ended was like, oh, that felt like it would have been the end of the arc kind of right there. And then we have the third episode, and that's all back on Coruscant. The leader of Gorman, he thanked Mon Mothma and everything, and then of course he ends up getting arrested, and it's like, it's my people now, but your people tomorrow. Like, remember this day, remember Gorman. And then Mon talks to the dude whose name I cannot remember right now for the life of me, which is insane. I remember the actor's name, which is Benjamin Button. I don't remember. I don't remember anything, but you know who I'm talking about. Mon talks to him, and they have their moment where he's like, I can't go. You go to Yavin. I'll meet you there next year. And that's their plan. She's going to have her final speech, and then it's like, you need to get out while the getting is good. And I love the speech she gave. She's freaking out. She doesn't know what's going to happen. Her assistant ends up finding a bug because, of course, she was warned. And then it was like, all right, Bel Organa. There we go. I had to have his name. But Bel, references the fact that another one of the members found a listening device, which, if we're going off of the screen that they have when she breaks hers, all of them are still green. So I would assume that the person that found it, and then they still ended up putting another one in there, because I'm like, all of them are green. So unless they just left it in there, of course. But that was the thought I had watching. I was like, they found it and probably removed it, and then they're like, well, let's just put another one back in there later. So I thought that was interesting, because all of them were green except for hers. I was like, oh, that's interesting. The person that found it, I would assume, would be amongst the row of bugs that was there. So I just thought that was a funny little thing, like, they're all still green. So they probably rebugged the office, but I thought that was cool. So of course they find that, she destroys it, and they just assume it's like a random issue, which I love the fact that they were just like, well, if she couldn't have found it, it must have just died. And I thought that was the funniest thing, where it's like, little stuff like that is how you get away with things, where people are just like, oh yeah, battery must have died. Like, that's crazy. Like, we'll do it later, I guess. It was like, yeah, that's weird. That's so weird. Like, she didn't come out of the office. They call her driver and stuff. I was like, no, she's just pulling an all-nighter. It's like, I guess it just broke. I guess it just broke down, and that's it. Like, and that's really how they get away with it, because if they actually understood that she found it and destroyed it, then they would have gone to the office. They would have done something to just send somebody there. But they were just like, well, I guess it's messed up. And, they aren't going to officially out themselves. So that's why they wouldn't have sent it. They wouldn't assume it was on purpose. And I just love the way that's how that storyline ended up continuing forward, where it was like, she just smashes it, and they're like, oh, I must have messed up. And that's just the only way they did it. They check with the driver. It's like, no, it's pulling an all-nighter. So, okay. That's crazy. We'll just fix it later. And that was pretty much how they had that solution. So I just thought that was a really funny thing. They didn't really touch on it much, but I was like, I find it hilarious that it's just the most basic thing. Like, somebody was just like, yeah, I checked this, I checked that. It's like, I don't know what it is. Battery died. And that's just how they handled it. And it was just like, that's funny. That's a real world thing, where you just don't assume someone's onto you. You just assume, it failed. We'll do it later. No big deal. So I thought that was really funny, because I'm like, that makes so much sense that no one would just assume she found it. Because why would she find it? Why would she look for it? Stuff like that. Why would any of these people have any concept of what we're doing behind the scenes, So I like that idea. They're so above and beyond powerful as the Empire that they don't think little stuff like that could be on purpose. Like, it must have been an accident. We'll fix it later. So I just thought that was an interesting little moment. But of course, she has her amazing speech coming up, which was a really well done speech. But she ends up meeting with Luthen. He goes to visit her at night, which I can't be the only person that was like, is that effing Darth Vader? Because it was just a tall dude in a cape in absolute darkness. And I was like, what the F? And I was like, oh, that's Luthen. Like, I was like, this doesn't make any sense, but that looks like Darth Vader. It was so dark, and it was a dude with a long cape, and it looked like he had the helmet. I'm like, is that Darth Vader? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then it was like, oh, it doesn't, because it's Luthen. But I was very confused for that moment. I would love to know if anybody else felt that way during that scene, where it's just a big shot and he's just walking, and I'm like, oh my God, is that Darth Vader? Wouldn't make sense. Didn't make sense. It was Luthen. But they have a great sequence. I have friends everywhere is like the main thing. And then of course we get to the speech. It was a great speech. They even dropped Senator Palpatine. I thought that was a really great moment. And her doing that specifically was like, oh yeah, like everything she said was already bad enough. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to run after this. But as soon as she straight up says his name, it was like, oh, you need to be invisible instantaneously. Like, you gotta get out of here. And of course, Andor's there to help her out. We have the crew that was supposed to be helping her, and it turns out only one of them was bad. Like the way Luthen explained it, I thought all of them were going to be the bad guys, but just one out of the three. And then she gets busted. She kills the one guy, and then it's like, where's he at? It's like, oh, he was busy, or we split up, or whatever. She just lies to him. And then I love the way they handled it, but she was like, this is an official ISB arrest. And then Mon's assistant, who we also find out had been working for Luthen since like the first batch of episodes, he just throws it out there. She's a rebel spy. They put her down. They, of course, there's like a security guard. They have him drop his weapon. I thought that guy was gonna die. He was like, I need 3 minutes. And Andor was like, are you sure? And he's like, I got it. I didn't think he had it. I'm gonna be honest. I was like, I know we barely got to know him, but I was liking him over like his little bits and pieces where it was clear that he was like helping her out and stuff. And then especially knowing after that he'd been working with Luthen, it was like, I don't know him well. I don't even remember his name, but I don't want him to die either. But I was glad he didn't. They all end up making it out, and that was nice. Killed the driver, Corrin. I remember his name, but it was like, Corrin, we got it. It's like, who are you? Boom, he's gone. So I thought that was an interesting sequence. And then they shoot off in the car. They get back to the old apartment, and that's where we see woman actually made it off the planet. He just got injured, but everything's fine there. And I love the way it was handled. And everything's said and done. They go back, and it's like, all right, Andor's decision after everything that happened was it's time to be done. I'm ready to go. We have everything that we need. We can leave. But of course, the rebellion needs Andor. They have the scene with the Force Lady. I did skip over that. I forgot about that part where she realizes that, there's some potential specialness to him, or just the way that he kind of goes through things where he doesn't hold on to the baggage. He just kind of moves forward to the next goal in mind. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was interesting. Some people were bothered by that as if it said like he was just super special. I didn't see it as that. I just saw it as like, it's kind of what Force users do, where they can kind of get that sense of like, oh, I can kind of see where your trajectory is headed, like a little bit. Like, it's kind of the Force. It's not like he's destined to do it. It was just like he has the skills to be that good. Like, that's how I kind of looked at it. Not that he was like destined to be this great hero or leader. It was just the fact that he's skilled enough that he can make it happen. Like, that was how she, that sense that she got off of him. Like, he is a true soldier, seriously trying to work towards, the greater good, I guess, of the galaxy. So I was fine with that scene. I didn't see it as like, oh, you're destined or you're Force sensitive and stuff like that. I just saw it as that's what she gathered from him, from everything he had done and the way he handles it all. So I like that sequence. Like I said, for me personally, I thought it was fine. But through all of that, Bix decided, you're going to leave the rebellion if it's for me, and I can't let you do that. So I'm choosing the rebellion. And that means I have to take off. Like, basically, like, I think you'll do a lot better than I would. So I gotta leave so that you can't leave them. And then we hear by the end that he becomes captain. And so that was the sequence where it was like, hey, we got the K2 droid, and they call him Captain Andor. I was like, okay. And then of course, the very end is K2SO kicking up, and that's how we end our arc. And so we're going into the finale now. And I'm excited. I'm very curious who's going to live, who is going to die. I think they're going to hit us with a couple of deaths, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know if it's going to be on both sides of the fence, because I think the only person that would realistically die on the villain side would be Dedra, possibly her boss. But at the same time, neither of them are really like right in the middle of it all. Like, the closest would be Dedra during this batch of episodes, like being on Gorman. But other than that, she's normally on Coruscant. They do all of their stuff from behind the seat, and they tell other people what to do kind of out in the field. That's their whole thing. So I don't know if they would ever even truly come across her. That was like the whole point of having, to try to randomly find her and be like, hey, she's on Gorman. It's because that was one of the few circumstances where she wasn't just on Coruscant and perfectly fine. And they can't exactly attack her on Coruscant. So it was interesting. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening in this finale. Who lives, who dies. We got 3 episodes. Will his sister pop up? Who the F knows? I'm so curious about that. More than anything else, I'm like, will they even reference his sister? Will they do it? Maybe they'll do it in the craziest way and be like in a passing line, like, yeah, I found out she died. And that'll be it. I hope they don't do that, because that would be really crappy. But I'm super curious where things are headed. But these were great 3 episodes. It was still sad. It was more sad because of how Syril died, not sad to me that Syril died, if that makes sense. I think it does, just because of, especially the who are you moment. I think it makes perfect sense for people to be like, it's not sad that he died, because he was the bad guy. But it was definitely made worse by the way it was done, because he was betrayed himself. Even though he did do bad things, he was still the bad guy. He was trying to do good. Him hating Andor was because Andor killed a cop. Those cops did horrible things. They were scummy, but at the same time, he still killed 2 cops. Interesting. This is an interesting way to have it done. And then sadly, Syril is gone. So we'll see what happens with the year time skip, how Deidre is after that. That is one of the things I'm also very curious about. What is her personality like having lost him? Because he's the only dude that was gonna deal with her, let's be honest. So I'm curious. I'm very curious. Maybe she had to get a couple of Lofcats. Who knows? But I would love to know your thoughts on these 3 episodes. The Gorman massacre, Mon officially leaving behind her family. I don't think we'll ever see any of them again. Like, I was curious, like, will we see what happened with her daughter? Will we see her husband? Maybe in the finale. It's possible. We're going to be on Coruscant a bit, so it's possible they pop up at least a little bit just to come to the store like, yeah, she's been gone for a year. It's so sad. Whatever. I don't know. We might see her husband, but I'm very curious about these next 3, or final 3, I should say. So we'd love to know your thoughts on arc number 3, the penultimate arc of Andor season 2, and Andor in general. It's the penultimate arc of Andor as a series. We'd love to know your thoughts, so please put them down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.